Hi everyone. In recent times, you've probably heard the words STEM MBA a lot, and you might be wondering what a STEM MBA is, how it is relevant for you, whether you should apply for one, and which schools offer a STEM MBA program. In this video, we're going to answer all of those questions and anything else that you might have about the STEM MBA program. My hope is at the end of this video, you are equipped with enough information to take the decision for yourself and determine whether a STEM MBA is what you need to achieve your career goals. What does the word STEM stand for? STEM is an acronym that stands for Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics. So any program of study, it doesn't have to be an MBA or a master's program, gets designated as a STEM program if it is in any of these four fields. Designated by who? By the Department of Homeland Security of the US government. Basically the broad department that is responsible for stamping that visa and letting you into the country. So this video is relevant for you only if you're looking at doing your MBA in the US. There is no concept of designating an MBA program as a STEM program in any other part of the world. This means that this STEM designation plays a vital role in your visa process. We will see how it is relevant to your visa process later in this video. An MBA program gets designated as a STEM program if it has two aspects to it. A management program that also has data analytics elements to it. How does the Department of Homeland Security decide that this is a STEM MBA program? The business school should first apply to the US government asking for a STEM MBA designation, and they have to demonstrate that they have academic programs that have enough academic programs, not just one elective or two, that teach their students to graduate with data analytics skills and with managerial skills. So you are taught both the art of decision making and the science behind those decisions. If the schools can demonstrate that they have such a program, then the US government gives them the STEM designation. The first couple of STEM designations came out probably around the year 2017-18, and then there has been a flurry of STEM designations in most of the top US schools, and now many of the top 20, top 50 US schools actually do have the STEM designation in some form or the other. So why should you go for a program designated as a STEM MBA? Simply put, there are two advantages. One, you get increased job opportunities, and two, you also have a better facilitation and advantage when it comes to your visa process. Let's talk about both in a little bit of a detail. How does it give you better job opportunities? Let's face it, a lot of the business decisions these days are based on some sort of data analysis. It doesn't matter what function you end up working in. It's not like you have to be in the data analytics part or department of the business in order to work with data analytics. From marketing, finance, and even to something like HR, which is typically perceived as a very qualitative function, there is a lot of data analytics involved in the decision making. For example, if you're working in marketing, you might want to study competitor analysis. You might want to do a trend analysis of what's happening in the market. You might want to research consumer behavior and buying patterns, and then accordingly market and position your product. If you're in HR, you might want to evaluate employee engagement, employee loyalty, employees' willingness to stay with the company, and accordingly plan a succession plan, accordingly plan for attrition and future recruitment and training events and so on. So your decision making is based on data. Now, when you do an MBA with the STEM designation, depending on what you want to specialize in, you can choose to focus on papers that help you do market analytics, that help you do HR analytics and so on. Will you end up with a job where you're actually doing the analysis? Probably not. But businesses need decision makers who can understand the data that is presented to them by those who actually do the analysis. So think of it as being better equipped to manage the technical team as being able to speak the speak, so to speak. If you can understand the language of the technical team and the analysts, you are better equipped to take the decisions, and you're going to therefore take better decisions that are going to foster the growth of the company. and businesses value that, they appreciate that. And that means the jobs that require you to combine data analysis with decision making are valued and priced at a premium, and displaying that you have the skills for it means you are going to be valued and evaluated at the premium as well. And that means more doors are going to open for you and you're going to get better paying opportunities. Let's also talk about the visa process. I want to introduce a couple of acronyms, terms to you. The first term is an F1. That's the name for the student visa when you're applying to the US. So when you get an admission into an MBA program, you are going to join the program on an F1 visa. Now the F1 visa is for the program of study, for the duration of study. So you could be applying for a 2-year, 3-year, 1-year, 4-year program. However long your study is, the F1 visa is valid for that duration. Once you graduate, you will have to apply for and get started with something called the OPT, or optional practical training, and that's the second term for you. An OPT is typically awarded for a 12-month period, where you're telling the US government, I want to stay in this country and get some practical experience that is related to what I study. So you can't do an MBA and do a part-time job delivering pizza and expect the OPT to be valid. You have to do a job that is relevant to your field of study, because the objective of the OPT is for the theoretical learning in the classroom to get established in your mind through the practical experience. If you want to continue working in the country after your OPT period ends, the third and final term for you is an H-1B visa. A H-1B visa is the work visa for the US government. Now the H-1B visa is not available immediately. It's a lottery system where people are awarded the H-1B visa once a year. You can't apply on any date and expect the visa to kick in next week. So think of your OPT period as a bridge between your H-1B period and your F1 period. From being a student, you need to complete the documentation in order to get your work visa. In the meantime, you can still be working and gaining experience in the OPT period. Now, what does the STEM MBA give you? If you graduate from a STEM designated program, you can apply to the US government and ask for a 2-year extension on your OPT. So instead of getting an optional training period for a total of 1 year, you get it for a total of 3 whole years. How is that an advantage? As I said, the H-1B visa is awarded on a lottery system. You have a certain fixed number of visas that are awarded every year, and you usually have between 2.5 and 3 times the number of people applying for the H-1B visa in the US. Does that mean you have a 1 in 3rd chance of getting a H-1B visa? Your chances are probably a little better, because a fixed number of those total visas are awarded for people who do study in the US. Instead of people who are living in other countries and want to go to US only to work, if you first study and then work, chances are better. Which means, if you have a 1-year OPT period, you have 1 chance at this lottery system. If you don't get your H-1B visa in that 1 chance, your OPT is out, you haven't got an H-1B visa yet, that means you have to relocate out of the country. Instead, if you have a 2-year extension and a total of 3 years, that means you have 3 chances at the lottery system, a significantly greater probability of getting an H-1B visa. If you don't have any problems with your documentation, pretty much guaranteed that you will then get your H-1B visa within the second, worst case scenario, the 3rd attempt at the lottery. If your chances of getting your H-1B visa is significantly higher, that also means that the number of companies that are willing to sponsor you, the number of companies that are willing to recruit you is going to go up. Why? Companies have to consider the cost to the company. What are the potential costs to the company? You will have the initial recruitment cost in recruiting you, training costs in getting you onboarded and working effectively for the team, legal fees in sponsoring and paying for your H-1B visa, because it's not something you pay out of your pocket, it's something the company does. If you don't get your H-1B visa and only have a 1-year OPT period and you have to move out, then relocation fees if the company is transferring you to some other department or some other branch, Maybe they are asking you to move to their European branch or to their Canadian branch or Indian branch or something like that. They'll pay the relocation fees and re-recruitment fees in getting another person to join in your place. That's 5 different kinds of costs that the company can expect to face in the first year of recruiting you. But if you have a greater probability of getting an H-1B and you do get that H-1B visa, then these last 2 costs are no longer in a factor. They don't have to pay for relocating you and they don't have to pay for re-recruiting someone in your place. So knowing that you are on an OPT period that is 3 years and not 1 year means that the companies are aware that the cost of recruiting you and the potential risk is significantly lower. Smaller organizations that are not very confident about their legal team or that do not have the bandwidth like a Google or a Microsoft might have will now be more willing to recruit you because they know that you will eventually get that H-1B and it makes sense for them to invest in you. Versus if you have a 1-year period, then those doors might still be closed to you. So STEM MBA, because it reduces the cost to the company, or rather the potential cost and the potential risk to the company, also gives you more opportunities and increases the willingness to recruit an international student for a particular organization, thus making your MBA more valuable, giving you a better chance at a better return on investment. So does that mean you have to apply for a STEM MBA program? Well, clearly there are definitive advantages to going for a STEM MBA program, but I'm going to answer a yes and qualify that. Don't just do it for the visa. Just because you're graduating from a STEM MBA program does not mean you'll automatically get the OPT extension, automatically improve your chances of getting a H-1B visa. There are other factors here for you to think about, and I want to present those questions to you. You don't have to answer all of these questions right now in this stage of your decision making process, but it's definitely something that you have to think about over the next year or so from now till you start your, or even right after you start your MBA program. What are the questions I want you to ask yourself? Why is this particular program a STEM program? What gave it the STEM designation? And is that something that I want to study? What do I mean by that? As you will shortly see, there are some schools that have their full-time MBA standardly recognized as a STEM program, which means irrespective of what courses you study within the full-time MBA program, you're going to graduate with a STEM MBA. And then there are some programs on the other hand that require you to take certain electives, take certain specializations in order to demonstrate an interest in data analytics. Only then does the US government recognize that as a STEM MBA program. So for those schools, I want you to look at what electives they offer and whether those electives make sense for you personally in terms of your interest and in terms of your career goals. Because if that particular specialization, that particular elective doesn't make sense for you, then it doesn't make sense to apply to the school just because it has a STEM program. It's still a fantastic program, it's still a top business school in the US, you're still going to graduate from a leading MBA program, but know that because you didn't take that particular specialization, you're not necessarily going to avail that OPT extension on graduation. And be sure that that's okay for you before you decide to apply for that school. Other factors for you to think about, if not now, definitely as soon as you start your internship and your full-time recruitment process as part of your MBA program. What sort of job do you want to do and what sort of companies do you want to do it in? Why does this matter? The designation, the OPT extension, is awarded only for demonstrating an interest in a STEM career, which means just graduating from a STEM MBA program is not enough for the US government. You need to take up a job that involves some sort of data analysis. If your job has nothing to do with decision making based on data but is really qualitative in nature, then you might not get a 2-year OPT extension even though you did graduate with a STEM MBA designation. And finally, companies need to complete something called the e-verification process with the US government. Only companies that are e-verified can have employees on the 2-year OPT extension period. This will impact people who want to work with startups, really small firms who want to found their own organization. So say you have an interest in entrepreneurship and you end up founding your own company with a couple of your peers. Your new organization doesn't have e-verification yet from the US government, and if you are not able to get the processes and documentation done within the 1-year OPT period, then even though you are a startup founder, you may have to move out of the country. Most organizations, hundreds of organizations are e-verified. So if you are willing to work for an established organization, this is not an issue. If you want to work for a small organization, that's when you need to think about whether a STEM MBA is really relevant to you and whether that should be a factor that you take into consideration when you decide on the MBA program. These are some of the schools where it is a default STEM MBA if you graduate from the full-time MBA program. There are no additional requisites, and my alma mater USC Marshall is one of the schools. So I graduated taking a variety of specializations, some in data analytics, some not in data analytics. Irrespective of my choices, I have graduated with a STEM MBA designation. There are some schools, several schools in fact, where your specialization matters. If you choose the management science specialization, if you choose to do an X number of credits in data analytics, then you will graduate with a STEM MBA designation, and then depending on your job and company, you will be able to apply for an OPT extension. So these are the schools where I want you to look into what that specialization is. I want you to analyze the academic programs and see whether that makes sense for you in terms of your career decisions before making a choice. Know one thing, all the schools that we have given you here in both these slides are some of the schools from the top 25 MBA programs in the US. This is not a complete list. There are several more schools that offer you some STEM MBA in some form or the other. Finally, is your application process any different? And that's an absolute no. Irrespective of whether you want to graduate with a regular full-time MBA or a STEM designated full-time MBA, you're still part of the same cohort, you're still part of the same class. So if a particular school has 250 seats for the full-time MBA program and offers a STEM designations for those who choose the management science specialization, there's no difference when it comes to your application process. There is no difference even during your first semester probably when you will be doing your core courses that are compulsory for everybody in the class. When does this whole differentiation kick in? When you start choosing your electives. So your application process is absolutely the same. There are no differences there. But being aware that a program has a STEM designation and determining whether it matters to you based on your career choices will impact your decision on how much value you're placing on a particular school's admissions, how much it matters to you, and whether or not you should even apply to that particular school. If you're applying this year, then I definitely encourage you to start thinking about the whole application process, be it getting your GMAT score in place or getting the rest of your application in place, because applying for 2022 means meeting round 1 deadlines in October of 2022. And at the time of publication of this video, you only have a few months left. So reach out to us at Wizako if you need any help with your GMAT preparation process, with your admission consulting, B-school selection process, your application essays, or basically you just want to chat with us. Good luck with everything.